Hey everybody, this is Justin.
And this is Bryce with Electric Bike Report.
And today we are going to be reviewing the Orbea Wild. This is a bike that I have been very excited to review for quite some time. It has won a ton of accolades this past year. And so we wanted to put it through our testing and see if we think it was deserving of those accolades. So stick with us and find out. All right, so this is the Orbea Wild M20, which is kind of their mid-spec. It starts at $7,299 with a carbon fiber frame. So that being said, Bryce, why don't you walk us through all the specs?
Okay. Our test bike came in at 53 pounds on the scales. It's a size large, and that is a carbon frame. This is 160 mil travel front and rear 29er. The drivetrain on this bike is handled by Shimano SLX derailleur, and the brakes on this bike are a 4-piston Shimano brake with 203 mil rotors. The dropper post on this bike is a house brand of Orbea, Okuo, and it's 170 mil drop. And one of the cool things on this bike is the remote up on the handlebar that controls the motor power is wireless, so you don't have any cable routing from that remote. Speaking of cable routing, one of the things that's been a little divisive lately has been the fact that a lot of bike brands are incorporating headset cable routing. This bike does have that, but when you're riding this bike, it really makes the cockpit look clean. Your mechanic might hate you for that, but it really does look nice when you're riding the bike. The wheels on this bike are alloy race face wheels, and those are wrapped in Maxxis tires. In the rear, we've got a 2.4-inch DHR2 in EXO Plus casing, and on the front we've got a Maxxis Assegai 2.5-inch EXO Plus casing. So let's get into the heart of this bike, which is the motor and battery. This is powered by the Bosch CX motor. That motor is paired with a 750 watt-hour battery. You can either get that as a 750, or again, you can customize that in the My Own program to a 625 watt-hour battery. Along with that, you can add the 250 watt-hour range extender. So if you get the 750 watt-hour battery in your bike, a 250 watt-hour extender, you have a total of 1,000 watt-hours that you can rip on this bike. I absolutely love that. And I don't think the weight really is a penalty on this, because you can see where you put that range extender is right where the water bottle is. So it's right in the middle of the bike, and you really are not going to feel that extra weight. The watts on this motor are well known. That CX Bosch motor has 85 newton meters of torque, 600 watts of peak power. It really delivers.
Yeah, and as a side note, you can get a Wild with the CX race motor if you really want to get rowdy and have a hell of a fun time.
There you go.
But yeah, I'm a big fan of this motor, big fan of the battery. And it's just really well done all the way around. You have the ability with the MyO system that they have to go in and actually customize every single thing almost on this bike, which is super cool. I bought a Rayon, it was a while ago, 5-6 years ago, and just had a ton of fun customizing. So on this bike here, you know, you can change out the battery, go from 750 watt down to the 625 watt. You can add the range extender, you can change out the shock, you can change out the fork, you can change out the handlebars, you can stem. I mean, you get an idea, like you really can come in here and customize this to be your own. And like for me, if I was gonna buy this, the one thing that I for sure would actually customize and upgrade I would add the Bosch Kiosk 300. Right now it just has, it doesn't have that display, which it functions totally fine. I'm kind of a data geek, and so I like to see that as I go. That'd be one thing that I'd change out. This is the model that for me, I'd probably start looking at, because I do want a carbon frame. And so this is the entry-level carbon frame. And then you can kind of pick and choose from there what you want to build on, but you get the killer motor, nice carbon frame and can build from there. I don't know, was there anything that you would change out?
So unlike you, like I would not want a display on there. I love the Bluetooth remote. It doesn't have a wire, and so all I really want is how much battery I got left, and I'm good to go. There might be a few things I would change out. Maybe I would do something different with the brakes. I think the drivetrain is great. I would probably do a different shock. I don't know.
You tend to be particular with your handlebars.
I would get a higher rise bar, and it would be carbon. But again, it's a pretty small cost difference. But as you do that, I know in the MyO program, it will show as you do those small changes, just the price adjustments. So for the price of this base model carbon bike, you can customize it and really make it almost a dream build.
Yeah, which that actually is always what gets me into trouble, because you actually can save a lot of money by upgrading now instead of kind of, oh, I'm gonna buy this and then upgrade the shock or the fork later.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's like $209 to upgrade the fork, you know, those types of things. I end up kind of walking myself up that pretty quick.
I think we've all done that.
So again, if you're trying to save money, you need to be careful with that. But otherwise, like, you really can do a ton of things, even the color and some of those if you really want to. So really well done. It's one of my favorite things about Orbea.
Yep.
Okay, on to our hill test where we really put that motor through two different climbs to see how powerful it is and how it compares to some of the other full power motors on the market. First test is on Hellhole, our standard test where we take all our bikes. Very steep, very challenging on motors. It is a paved path though, so it kind of isolates that motor, which is why I like Hellhole. The second one, we climb to a local water tower. It's about a mile climb and it's double track. So it's a little more indicative of how the bike will do on the trail. So let's send you to those tests. I'm the one that did those tests, so you'll kind of follow along with me as I climb those hills. Okay, we are out on Hellhole now with the Orbea Wild, powered by the Bosch Performance CX motor, 85 Newton meters of torque. And I'm curious to see how this compares not only to the other motors, but also to the other Performance CX motor that I just recently did on a slightly heavier bike. So the Wild is 53 pounds and it's about 7 pounds lighter than the other. And we're gonna see how it goes. This is a pretty steep hill. So I found it's actually a really good hill to test motors, actually. Obviously not a mountain bike path or a single track, but it's still a great test. Through here, I'll let you listen to the motor. So in general, it's fairly quiet, you know, on this. You do hear the whine more as you bring the cadence up. But it feels good. It feels a lot of fun. Very punchy, very powerful with those 85 Newton meters of torque. Bike feels fantastic. So we will go to the tape and see how this did and how it compares to the other bikes. All right, we're out on the eMTB hill test with the Orbea Wild that comes with a Bosch Performance CX motor, and we're going to see how well this thing climbs, this double track. As always, I'm going to try to keep my input, you know, kind of the same. I'm going to try to pedal about the same through each, you know, with each bike that I do. And while we kind of go along the light way, I'll give you some insight into the motor, how it feels, and ultimately we'll be able to see, you know, how this stacks up against the other eMTB motors and how this bike stacks up against other bikes with the same motor. So, you know, with that being said, the Bosch Performance CX motor, 85 Newton meters of torque. It's kind of the most highly decorated motors in the eMTB industry. And from riding around, I will say it's a lot of fun. Feels really punchy on climbs. And yeah, so I'm, again, very excited to see how this does. Let's hit it.
Okay, so this motor, first of all, again, feels really powerful. You do hear it a little bit. I'll let you listen through this section. I'll get the cadence up. So you can hear there when I get the cadence higher, you hear that kind of high-pitched whine just a little bit. It almost just makes you feel like you lose it in the background, but it makes you feel like you're on an e-bike and it's fun. Climbing this, obviously, it's not stressing this motor very much. From a cadence standpoint, I find the cadence to be pretty natural where I want to climb. I'm really liking that. Just overall, really good kind of power kick to it, and makes climbing this stuff really fun. So with that being said, really curious to see how this does, how it compares against some of the other motors. Let's go to the tape and see how the Orbea Wild did with the Bosch Performance CX motor.
So I will tell you right now, as you can probably tell from the video, like, I really do like this motor. It is very powerful. On Hellhole, it climbed it in 1 minute, 29 seconds, so an average of 12.2 miles per hour. On the Water Tower climb, it was 3 minutes and 35 seconds, average of 14.5 miles per hour. The thing that really stood out there is one of the other motors that is very well known, the Specialized 2.2 motor, has more torque. And on Hellhole, like, I kind of saw that the Specialized did climb faster than the Bosch did. But when I went back and compared the times on the Water Tower climb, they actually, and I kid you not, they were identical. So I actually took the Levo out and like back to back, and I did them both twice, and that happened. So what I've kind of my takeaway from this, from the motor power, so many people ask, hey, what's the best motor? And honestly, I think it depends on you. So with the Bosch, I found it to be very punchy and powerful in real trail situation.
Yeah.
Where it just, like, we have to take this back tomorrow. I'm very sad about that because I want to ride this thing a lot more. And so I got up super early to take it out on a local trail that is just extremely technical. Lots of rocks and boulders that you can, like, punch up and climb over. And this thing, honestly, I liked it better than any other of the motors that we've tested because of that kind of the overrun that the Bosch motor has.
Yeah.
When you really go to crank it, it like knows that you need that power in that moment, and it just gets you up and over. So while I didn't climb the super steep Hellhole as the Specialized 2.2 motor did, it's kind of to be expected because it doesn't have the same amount of torque. But in the real world, on real trails, I mean, everybody talks about it being super punchy, super fun, lively. That's what I found. I don't know if you have any different experience.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I will say one thing, when you do get a bike with the Bosch CX or race motor, there is a little bit of adjustment in getting used to the overrun of the motor. So after you are pedaling and stop pedaling, the motor will continue for just a split second. And I think that's what makes it so fun to ride on technical terrain where you're getting up and over boulders or whatever it is, the trail features that you're trying to tackle. That motor just keeps the flow going.
Yeah, and I would also make a note, like, I prefer, so even though we did the range test and everything in turbo mode, I actually find myself riding in eMTB mode, like where it just kind of, it's on auto and I just don't have to think about it, and it just kind of knows how much power I need.
Yep.
How they do that, it's almost wizardry. But it was super fun going on crazy technical trail in that mode with that motor. It's just, again, I'm still smiling about it. And, you know, again, just to echo what you said, kind of that learning curve. I've also ridden Bosch CX motors actually with the Wild with some friends that weren't as experienced mountain bikers. And yes, it does take a little bit of learning curve. But it's kind of like a fun learning curve.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it really does. And once you get to it,
You figure out how it's going to help you.
Yes, and that
it's not a hindrance, and it just makes the trail and the experience more fun.
Yeah, it's not maybe as natural and smooth as some of the words that some people describe, but yeah. I think it's just a lot more fun in some cases. So you know you're on an e-bike, embrace it, and go have just one hell of a ride. All right, I am stoked to get this Orbea Wild out on the range test. We just did a max range test on a bike with, again, the Bosch Performance CX motor, 750 watt power tube last week, but that bike, the Bulls, was about 7 pounds-ish heavier. This one's about 53, so I'm really curious. That's actually one of the main things that I'm curious on, to see how it differs in terms of range, given that this bike is a little bit lighter. So yeah, with that being said, let's hit the trails. All right, we made the Stookie climb. Again, that is normally kind of a slog where we take the XC riders out to get them into shape, but it is fun on an e-bike. I'll say it's fun. So far my riding time is 24 minutes 58 seconds. There was a little bit of playing around with this new GoPro Hero 12 with the Max 2.0 lens, so take off a minute or two for that. Distance 6.3 miles. I'm down to 81% on the battery, and as you can see, it's getting hot out here, and wearing the GoPro is a little bit hot, but that's okay because it's a ton of fun. So again, made it up to Stookie. We will keep going and going to the next checkpoint. Okay, we are going to climb now up what they call the 3 Fingers of Death. Personally, I think that name is a little overblown, but there are some good section climbs here, so we can go up so you get an idea. So there, had to get off the saddle. Had I downshifted one more gear, I think I would have been totally fine. You know, in some cases the turbo, because I'm in turbo here, feels like it's a little too much. Definitely not needed. It makes it fun though. Get climbing pretty fast up through these sections. The engagement on the motor, as far as when I stop and go, it's pretty precise. There's really not much lag.
Then from an overrun, if I just stop like this, it stops pretty immediately. One thing I notice, if I'm really trying to get like an extra push, so like an extra push like through here, it'll give me just a little bit extra, I think. And so it feels like it's engineered to do that, just to kind of help you punch through some technical climbs, some other things. We got some climbs coming up here that we'll really test it out with. And this one, I'll just let you listen to the motor. So that section is super steep and climbs like a champ. It's tons of fun. When you get that higher cadence, you hear the motor more. That's because it's giving you more output. Okay, we are at checkpoint number 2, which is the top of the 3 Fingers of Death. Again, way overblown on that name, but that's okay. They are fun to go down. So update, I've been riding for 46 minutes and 4 seconds. I've gone 11.7 miles and I'm down to 73% on the battery. And oh my heavens, this is awesome. This is fun. If I'm ever whining because of my job, this is a PSA to my wife, tell me to shut up. This is fun. So again, that's the backside of 3 Fingers, checkpoint number 2. And then we're gonna head down and we're gonna climb Zen. And this is where the real test of a motor and the feel for a bike comes in. Zen is pretty fun, challenging, techy. So let's hit it. Checkpoint number 3, bottom of Zen. And it's getting hot. So I've been going for an hour and 34 minutes and 18 seconds. My average speed is just under 13 miles per hour. And my distance is 18.54. And the battery is showing 51%. So that's a little crazy to me that I still have 51%. It's getting hot, so I almost find myself hoping it drains a little faster. But yeah, so bottom of Zen, super fun. Whew, let's keep going. All right, 4th checkpoint, bottom of Bear Claw. And this thing ain't dying. I've been going for an hour and 54 minutes, 29 seconds. I've gone 23.12 miles, and I'm still at 41% battery. So this bike is just determined to kill me today. So we'll see, we might get like 35 or so. So let's keep going. Okay, we made it to lap 2. So checkpoint number 5, the top of Stookie. And I've been going 2 hours and 25 minutes and 4 seconds. The average speed about 12 miles, so as you see, I'm starting to get a little tired. Distance just under 30 miles on Strava. On the Flow app, it says I've gone 30.2 miles with 18% battery left. I am starting to feel maybe a little bit less power from the motor. Could be me putting out less power. 30 miles is a long way on turbo through this stuff. So we're gonna keep going and see if we can finally kill this thing. All right, we are at the bottom of Bear Claw Poppy, checkpoint number 6. And Flow app says we've gone 37.3 miles, 4% left on the battery. Little discrepancy with Strava. Strava saying 36.27 miles with average of 12 and a half miles an hour, 2 hours and 55 minutes of time. So 4% left on the battery, and I think we're gonna see if we kill the battery first or if the battery kills me. So we're gonna keep climbing for a few more minutes until we get to time of death. All right, it is saying 1% left on this motor, and so we're just gonna talk till it dies. This has kind of been the Energizer Bunny that just won't die. So I will say at 1% left, there has been no glitching in and out on the power. Oh, as I said it, there it goes. There was a little glitch. Starting to feel that. That's kind of ironic. But anyways, it has been incredibly consistent up until right now. The only time that I've noticed it kind of stopping was, not stopping, but just slowing down a little bit from what it was on like a super steep, punchy climb. Other than that, I've been very impressed with the motor delivering consistent output. and it still is. This isn't a big climb by any means, but it is a little bit of a, you know, it's an uphill pedal, and we're gonna see how long it dies, or how long it goes until it dies. Kick it into a high pedal cadence. Oh, there it goes. That's all it took, was a high pedal cadence, and it is dead. Okay, so let's check and see the stats. Oh, keep in mind it's like 90, 95 out here, so it's been a long ride. Should have got out earlier. Okay, so it says on the flow app distance 38.3 miles, a total runtime of just under 3 hours, 2 hours and 58 minutes. Going to Strava now. It says 2 hours, 59 minutes, total distance of 37.33 miles, 12.38 average speed. So yeah, I will say overall, that is pretty darn far. You know, I'll save this to Strava. We got elevation data, but super impressed. Went a little farther than I expected. I was expecting around 34, 35, which, to put in context, that is far. That's on full turbo the entire way. Good elevation through some really techy, punchy stuff too. So that was one hell of a test. And there you have it. Time of death, 340, well, it's 347 now, dang it, probably 344 for the Orbea Wild.
All right, so we really do like the motor, right? But we also want to test things here at Electric Bike Report to see how far this can actually go.
Part of that is because motors act differently on different bikes. We found that.
Yeah, which is actually crazy because we had just done a Bulls aluminum bike that was almost 60 pounds, and so to do that right after to see how far this one went was really exciting.
Yep.
Right, so our range test, I did this one, we do it in full turbo mode, so it's full power, full juice, you're going fast. We have set up a 24-mile loop across a lot of different varied terrain. There's some fast, there's some flowy, there's some pretty darn challenging tech sections, and it's just a really good representation of if you're going to go out and ride some pretty fun and hard stuff. That's what this represents. So it's not some weak sauce trail system that we're just trying to juice the bike and just get as far, you know, get as much distance as we can. So with that being said, on the high power range test, I got a total of 37.33 miles, climbed 3,539 feet, and it lasted 3 hours and 1 minute on me. So this was a very long range test. And to be honest, it was 95 degrees out, kind of hit me. I wasn't prepared for that, and so it was long. I gotta say, like, that is just a very impressive result on turbo mode with a bike. And so that was about 4 or 5 miles longer than we got on that Bulls aluminum bike that was just under 60 pounds. So make this bike down to 53 pounds, getting that extra range. I gotta be honest, like we just talked about, you can customize this and go down to 625 watt hours on the battery. I might be tempted to do that, and then if I want to, just add the range extender, because I mean, that's in turbo. If I put that in eMTB mode, which I love, by the way, or something lower, you're just gonna go a long ways, and being able to ride 3-4 plus hours is awesome. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, so when this bike first came out, it was touted as one of the lowest weight full power eMTBs. And that's where in the Myo program, you don't have to go to the full highest end spec to get a lower weight. You can drop that battery size to 625, you save weight there. You can upgrade the wheels, you can upgrade the drivetrain, you can upgrade a handful of things that will save weight. And I will mention that at heart, I am a weight weenie. I know we're talking about e-mountain bikes that are heavy and burly and whatnot, but like a lot of us out there, if you can save weight, you're gonna chase it. I do that, and I think this would be a really fun bike to do on. I'd like to see what this bike would ride like on the trails at 45 pounds, at 46 pounds.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, you upgrade the wheels, you downgrade from the 750 to the 625. Like you save 1.5 pounds on that going from the 750 to the 625. So either way, I think you're gonna be happy. But the thing that I really do like is sometimes these full power, they'll come with like 500 watt hour batteries, and those I think you might be getting a little bit close to you want a little bit more. I think having the 625, the 750 plus the Power More 250 option just makes this a really, I mean, just stellar option where you can get a lot of miles in.
So you can seriously customize this bike all the way down to the amount of power and watt hours that you're carrying.
Exactly.
So aside from this being a beautiful bike, how does it ride? Join me as we go on some of our local trails. I'll break down my thoughts and impressions, and then we'll come back in here to the studio for a debrief.
All right, so far I have loved the Bosch motor. It has the natural feel that you want in lower modes. It actually feels pretty natural in the boost mode as well, but it just has that punch and power that is pretty impressive. One of the things I've noticed about this bike climbing and actually descending as well so far is, for a bike, I mean, this is the lower spec Orbea Wild, and so it's not their lightweight flagship. I think, you know, it's not super heavy, but it comes in about 53 pounds. It has the bigger battery in it, the 750. And having said all of that, the front end of this bike just feels really light. When you're riding techie stuff, lifting the front end up and over to get around or get over stuff, it's just really nice. And then on the flip side, riding this bike downhill just feels lively. Now it's got this spec has the Zeb on the front, but the back end, man, just lifting it up is so nice. But the back end has the float, Fox float. So far, I mean, the Fox float hasn't been overwhelmed, which was kind of surprising to me. That single inline shock on a 53-pound e-bike actually held up really well. One of the things you kind of have to get used to with the Bosch motor is the overrun. So especially in boost mode, when you stop pedaling, there's a slight overrun of power, which I think is an awesome thing to have. But if you're not used to it, it can kind of catch you off guard. So yeah, getting up over stuff on this bike, specifically with the Bosch motor and how light the front end feels, is awesome. One of the things that I think all of the people, all the riders have mentioned so far that have been on this bike is that the suspension felt pretty springy and almost bouncy. But I think that's actually because it's actually tuned to be a little bit stiffer, so you can lower the pressure, and after you do that, after you lower the pressure, it actually will give the bike the ability to soak up rough stuff pretty easily, and also improve the overall handling of the bike and how light it feels. So I also have noticed that I feel on this bike a little bit more up on top of the bike. Just kind of a general overall rider perception, but again, like, that's not, I do tend to prefer bikes that are more bikes that you sit in and feel like you're in the cockpit versus up and over. Yeah, like right here, getting the front end up and over those ledges was really easy with this bike.
So with that, let's get into the ride quality, how the bike actually felt on the trail. I will say we jumped the gun on this. We took it out before setting it up properly. We were so excited to get it. I mean, just look at it. The thing looks sweet. As far as eMTBs go, the integration of the motor into the frame is actually just a work of art. We were stoked. I've wanted to ride this bike for a long time, so we just jumped out there. The ride wasn't great. Having said that, we came back, put the pressures where they were supposed to be, took it back out, and the ride of this bike was absolutely amazing. For me, when I initially got on it, I kind of felt a little bit more on top of the bike versus in the bike. And I think that actually had something more to do with the geo. It's got a pretty steep seat tube angle of 77.5 degrees. So I think that just pushed me up and over more of the front, which kind of gave me that feel. I think if the longer I rode it, it would feel a little bit more natural. The other thing I really liked about this was the 64-degree head tube angle, and then the chainstay was a short but not too short 448 mils. So I had no problems looping out on steep climbs, so it's long enough to handle, you know, the steeper climbs, and it's also short enough to feel playful and fun, which is kind of something I prefer. I prefer a bike with a shorter chainstay, especially an e-bike. Having said that, when we pointed this bike downhill, the front end, the whole bike just really felt lively. And the harder and faster I rode it, the better and more lively it felt. It didn't feel out of control, it just felt fun and just an overall great ride quality.
Yeah, and I kind of echo that. You know, for me, I found, again, when it was initially set up, and even when I got the bike back from you, like you like to ride it a little stiffer, more firm on the suspension. With how stiff that frame is, that was just a little bit harsh for me. But once I took some of the pressure out of both the fork and the shock, and I mean, it was a ton of fun. Like I said, I don't want to give this thing back. Yeah. It's so much fun. And yeah, I think for me, it took me a minute to adjust to the geo. That's one of the challenges that we have in reviewing so many eMTBs is you jump on bike to bike to bike to bike, and you never really get a chance to fully settle into the bike. But after about 3 rides, like this morning, like I said, I don't want to give that thing back.
One of the standout ride characteristics for me was also how light the front end felt when you're pedaling, right? Like if you come up to a ledge or a rock or a boulder or something that you need to get up and over and you know, you just need to lift up the front, it just felt lighter than other full power e-bikes that I've ridden. And that was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, and I think really when it comes down to it, why this bike has won so many accolades is because of how, again, I think the geometry's spot on. I think the motor's super powerful. I just think it's super fun. And just with that ride quality being just, get on, you just love it.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's won so many awards.
So thanks for sticking around with us today on this review. In summary, I would say the standouts are the customization of the MyO program. You can really dial in the dream build that you want at the price that you are willing to pay. And overall, just a ton of fun.
Yeah, it absolutely, the bike rips. And again, sad that we have to kind of take it back.
Wish we could keep it.
Yes. So yeah, hopefully this review is helpful. If we didn't cover something you have a question on, please leave that in the comments below and we'll get back to you. There also is going to be a link to the full in-depth review with all the data, all the photos and everything on Electric Bike Report. So click that link to go there for that review. And other than that, thank you again for being here with us today, and we hope to see you out on the trail soon.